Your day starts with a tray, cold eggs, a slice of bread, a carton of milk that's already starting to turn, and in the corner of the tray, a small foil packet you almost overlook. That packet is worth more than anything else on the tray. Maybe more than anything else you own. Peanut butter. To you, on the outside, it was something you grabbed off a shelf without thinking. A snack, a sandwich ingredient, nothing more. In here, it's currency, it's protein, it's a tool, it's a weapon, it's a bribe, it's a bandage, it's the thing that quietly runs half the economy inside these walls. By the time you finish this, you'll never look at a jar of peanut butter the same way again. You wake up hungry. That's the first thing nobody warned you about. Prison food is built to keep you alive, not to keep you satisfied. The calories are there on paper, but the protein rarely is. Meat is expensive, and meat spoils. And meat requires trust in a kitchen staffed partly by the inmates themselves. So the kitchen leans on cheaper things. Starch, sugar, filler. Your body knows the difference before your mind does. Within days, you feel it. A dull, persistent hunger that never quite goes away, even after a full tray. That's when you notice the packet in the corner. Peanut butter doesn't spoil quickly. It doesn't need refrigeration. It's dense with fat and protein, the two things your body is starving for. One spoonful does more for you than the entire rest of the tray combined. You eat it slowly. You make it last. And that's the first lesson prison teaches you about peanut butter. Before anyone explains anything, your own body has already told you it matters. But that's only the beginning. Because peanut butter isn't just food in here. It's leverage. Commissary is where the real economy of prison lives. Once a week, sometimes less, you're allowed to spend whatever money is sitting in your account on a short list of approved items. Ramen, chips, stamps, hygiene products, and peanut butter, usually the cheapest source of real protein on the entire list. Cash doesn't exist inside these walls. You can't hand another inmate a $5 bill even if you had one. Guards would find it in a search within days, and possessing actual currency is its own violation. So a shadow currency takes over instead, one built almost entirely out of commissary goods. For decades, the standard was the postage stamp. Small, lightweight, easy to hide, universally accepted. But stamps have limits. You can't eat a stamp when you're hungry at midnight. You can't use a stamp to fix a busted seal on your cell window. Peanut butter can do both. A single jar becomes a unit of value. $10 owed on a card game. Half a jar owed on a favor. A full jar as payment for protection or information or simply being left alone. You start to understand that in a place where almost everything has been taken from you, the few things you're allowed to keep become sacred. And peanut butter sits near the top of that short list. The next step is where everything changes, because peanut butter's value doesn't stop at eating it or trading it. Inside these walls, people find uses for it that would never occur to you on the outside. Guards and longtime inmates alike will tell you the same thing. Peanut butter is one of the most versatile items in the entire facility, and almost none of its uses have anything to do with a sandwich. Take the walls. Old facilities, especially ones built decades ago, are riddled with cracks, chipped paint, gaps around pipes and vents. Peanut butter, thick and oily, can be pressed into small gaps to seal them. Some inmates use it to plug drafts. Others use it for something far more serious, muffling the sound of tools working against metal or concrete during an escape attempt. The oil in the peanut butter absorbs vibration and dampens sound just enough to buy precious extra minutes before a guard on patrol notices something is wrong. That sounds almost unbelievable the first time you hear it. But there is a well-documented history behind it. In more than one federal case file, investigators have noted peanut butter smeared into vents and gaps as part of a broader effort to disguise unauthorized work being done behind a wall. It gets stranger. Peanut butter has also been used as an adhesive. Its thick, tacky texture lets it hold small items in place temporarily, a razor blade tucked against a surface, a note pressed flat against a wall before it's hidden, contraband stuck to the underside of furniture during a shakedown. It isn't glue in the traditional sense, but under the pressure of limited time and even more limited options, it works well enough. There's one rule nobody tells you when you first walk in. Anything that can be repurposed will be repurposed. Nothing in here is ever just one thing. And peanut butter, more than almost any other commissary item, exists as a perfect example of that rule. Officers who have worked inside these facilities for years will describe searches where a jar of peanut butter raised more suspicion than almost anything else on a shelf. Not because peanut butter itself is dangerous, but because of everything it can be turned into and everything it can be used to hide. Some inmates have used it to mask the smell of other contraband. A pungent batch of homemade alcohol, often called pruno, ferments quietly in a sealed container for days, sometimes weeks. The smell alone can give it away during a routine walkthrough. A thin layer of peanut butter smeared around the seal of a container can dull that smell just enough to survive a passing inspection. That connects to something even bigger, the world of prison hooch. Making alcohol behind bars isn't easy, and it isn't safe. Inmates rely on whatever sugar sources they can access: fruit, ketchup packets, sometimes candy, combined with yeast smuggled in from the kitchen or scraped from bread. The mixture needs time, warmth, and above all, secrecy. Peanut butter enters the process in more than one way. Some use the oil layer that separates naturally at the top of a jar as an airtight seal over a fermenting batch, helping trap the gases that build pressure and speed the process along. Others use empty jars themselves as makeshift fermentation containers, since they're common enough on a shelf that a stray container rarely draws a second glance. It's a strange kind of ingenuity, turning something as ordinary as a peanut butter jar into part of an underground brewing operation. But scarcity does that to people. When you take away almost every material a person could normally use, they learn to make 3 or 4 different tools out of the one thing you left them. Things become even more uncomfortable when you consider how far this economy can stretch. Debts inside prison are rarely written down. There's no ledger, no bank statement, no paper trail. Everything runs on memory, reputation, and fear. If you owe someone peanut butter and you don't pay, the consequences rarely stay confined to the commissary sheet. Correctional officers who have spent years inside general population units describe watching disputes over commissary debts escalate into violence. Not because the item itself was valuable in dollar terms, but because failing to pay signals weakness. And weakness, inside these walls, is the most dangerous currency of all. A missed payment of a single jar of peanut butter has, in documented cases, led to fights, retaliation, and in the most extreme circumstances, far worse. Not because of the food itself, because of what refusing to pay represents about you to everyone else watching. You start to understand something the outside world rarely grasps. In here, value isn't about what something costs. It's about what it can buy you in trust, safety, and standing. The worst part hasn't happened yet. Because for some inmates, peanut butter becomes something closer to a lifeline in the truest sense. Isolation units, the ones reserved for disciplinary segregation or protective custody, often restrict access to commissary altogether or delay it for weeks. Meals in these units are stripped down even further than general population trays. For someone spending 23 hours a day inside a small cell, a stored jar of peanut butter, hoarded carefully in advance, can mean the difference between manageable hunger and something far worse. Some inmates describe rationing a single jar over 10 or 15 days, a spoonful at a time, timing it to specific hours just to give themselves something to look forward to. In an environment engineered to strip away almost every form of control, deciding when to eat your own peanut butter becomes one of the last decisions that still belongs to you. That's the part almost no one on the outside considers. It isn't really about the peanut butter at all. It's about what having something, anything, to control does for a person who has had nearly everything else taken away. Psychologists who study incarceration describe this pattern again and again. When autonomy disappears, people cling to whatever small choices remain. What to eat, when to eat it, who to share it with. These decisions, tiny as they seem from the outside, become enormous from the inside. They are proof, however small, that you still exist as a person who makes choices, not just a number who follows orders. A jar of peanut butter sitting quietly in a locker becomes exactly that kind of proof. By now you understand this was never really a story about food. It's a story about what happens when you take a group of people, strip away almost everything they once had, and hand them a short list of approved items to survive on. Watch closely enough, and you'll see them build an entire hidden world out of what's left. A currency, a toolkit, a form of protection, a small private act of control in a place designed to leave them with none. Peanut butter didn't earn that role because it's special. It earned it because it's dense, durable, useful, and just valuable enough to matter. The perfect raw material for people who have learned to build something out of nothing. So the next time you see that same jar sitting on a shelf at home, picture it differently. Picture a foil packet on a cold metal tray, a jar traded to settle a debt, a thin seal muffling the sound of a tool against concrete, a spoonful rationed out over 2 long weeks in a cell with no window. Could you survive a week in there, rationing the one thing that still felt like yours? What would you trade it for first? If this pulled you in, you'll want to see what really happens during the first 24 hours behind bars. Hit like, drop a comment with what surprised you most, and subscribe before you go, because the next documentary goes even deeper into the hidden rules nobody explains to you on the way in.